Nick Barella here. I wanted to put together just a short video to tell you the main reason why I believe the earth is flat, and it is flat. There are literally, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of reasons why I believe that the earth is flat, that it's not a globe. But the number one for me is water. Water is always flat. Water always finds its level. All the oceans and the streams and the creeks run down into the basins, which is what we call oceans. Water always takes the shape of its container. So water is really what does it for me. Now, this is according to NASA. So this is NASA's official website talking about the earth. You'll see down here it says that the diameter of the earth at the equator is 12,756 kilometers. So if we convert kilometers to miles, that's 7,926 miles. Now, here is a scale model of the earth. According to NASA, as you just saw, the diameter of the earth is 7,926 miles. So at the equator from one side to the other, 7,926 miles. Now, according to the History Channel, the longest river in the world is the Nile River, which is actually almost 5,000 miles in total length. But as the crow flies, you can see it here, that the total length is about 2,400 miles from the source to the outlet. As we just saw, the length of the Nile River, and this is as the crow flies, from the source point to the ocean that it empties out into, is 2,400 miles, about 30% of the Earth's diameter. So if we take NASA's word for it that it's 8 inches per mile squared, this is what the math looks like. 2,400 miles times 2,400 miles times 8 inches. That gets us the total amount in inches. We divide by 12 to get the total amount in feet. Then we divide by 5,280 to get the total amount in miles. And there should be 727 miles of total curvature. We divide that by 2, and that means there would be 363 miles to the midpoint or the peak. The Nile River would have to ascend 363 miles, or a total of over 720 miles from the beginning to the end. It would look like this. If you see this here, this would be the source point. It would have to curve up 363 miles to the midpoint, and then it would have to curve down 363 miles to the end point. That's impossible. Totally impossible. Just to put that in perspective, that would be the equivalent of 1,950 Eiffel Towers. You know what? I don't even have, these are all representing the Eiffel Tower. I don't even have enough on the screen. I think I'm short a few. I got tired of cutting and pasting. So it's very interesting, but water is always flat. Water always finds its level. And gravity is still a theory. The full name for gravity is the universal theory of gravity. It's an invisible, supernatural, all-powerful force that does not care if we're moral. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, I think we've been lied to. The earth is flat. Water is flat. I found another article that just confirms what I already believe, which is the earth is flat. And there's so much evidence, it's really overwhelming. But I was on LinkedIn looking at different industry news articles, and I came across this article that was talking about the Great Lakes and how they function like a slow-moving river together, which I thought was interesting. So I found the link to the original article, which was featured in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin Journal, and I'll put it in the link below the video. But basically what it says here, you'll see, and I'm reading from this highlighted portion, it says, they might be called the Great Lakes, but the 5 bodies of water are, in a sense, one giant slow-motion river flowing west to east, with each lake dumping like a bucket into the next until all the water is gathered in the St. Lawrence River and tumbles into the Atlantic Ocean, which sounds reasonable. I mean, it sounds intuitive. And then it goes on and talks about how they got there, tens of thousands of years ago and whatnot. But here's what's interesting. So then you get to this graphic, and it says 5 lakes, but one slow-moving river. And it talks about Lake Superior, which the width is about 379 miles, you can see right here. And it's at an elevation above sea level, which is 0 feet, sea level.
at 601.7 feet above sea level because the sea is indeed level. And then it points out that there's a dam right here that basically locks the water out and allows water to drain down to Lake Huron, which is 578 feet above sea level. And so the dam distance in the river is about 60, and then we get the width of Lake Huron, which is 223 miles. I mean, this continues on. And then we got Niagara Falls pointed out here, which is a distance of 35 miles roughly, where Niagara Falls happens. And long story short, from the beginning, so the westernmost point of Lake Superior to getting into the Atlantic Ocean, they have down here is a total of 2,212 miles. And you can see that along the way, it's level, and then it drops down after a dam. It's level, and then we got Niagara Falls, and then it drops down, and then a series of dams. But what you see consistent is that the water is level when undisturbed. And then we get to sea level, which again is 0 feet. It is the base. It's the basin. And so here's what's interesting. If we use a simple, if we use the simple calculation that NASA gives us, which is the Earth curves at 8 inches per mile squared, you do this: 2,212 miles times 2,212 miles times 8 inches. And that gets us the total amount of curvature in inches. So we divide by 12. That's the total amount in feet. And so you divide by 5,280, and that gets you the total curvature in miles. We should be asking, how come this graphic doesn't show from the source point to the ocean 617 miles? That's miles of curvature. There should be, from the beginning to end, 617 miles of curvature. So I went to this website that's actually set out to debunk that the Earth is flat. And it has a curvature calculation, and it talks about how the horizon is obscured by the curvature and all this stuff. So just to verify my numbers, 2,212 miles, and let's say we're starting at the level of the water, which is 0 feet in height instead of standing. And what we see here is that maybe my calculation's a little bit off. Maybe this is more exact. There should be a 675 miles of curvature. If we look at this point from the beginning, now remember, from the beginning, the westernmost part of Lake Superior to the ocean, that water should traverse 675 miles of curvature. But that's not what we see. What we see is level bodies of water to the dam points, waterfalls and rivers, to level bodies of water, to waterfalls and other dam points. And that's because water is always flat. Now, NASA wants us to believe that all the large bodies of water, like you can barely see right here, the Great Lakes, that those bodies follow the curvature of the Earth, but they don't. They follow the curvature in this graphic, which is level when undisturbed. So just more proof, we are not spinning on a ball. The Earth is flat. Water is flat, and what the Bible says about the makeup of the universe is indeed true. Heaven above, earth below, and hell below us. I was on Google Earth and I came across something that I thought was pretty amazing, and that is that when you draw a path between 2 points on Google Earth, you can then ask it to show you the elevation cross-section between those 2 points, so you can kind of see the rise and fall of the landscape like a topographical map. So just to test it out, I drew a path from my dad's house in Denver, Colorado, to my house in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I want to show you something very interesting. When I choose to show the elevation cross-section, you can see it's basically this red line. The starting point at my dad's house is 5,394 feet above sea level. And he's in Denver, Colorado, which is the mile-high city, so that's what you would expect. But then as you move east, and you can see the red arrow move east as I go that direction, the landscape starts to change where the elevation drops down and continues to drop. You go from the foothills of the Rocky Mountains into the plains of Colorado, Kansas, into Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and then finally you get into Cincinnati, Ohio, to my house, which is 764 feet above sea level. So what's interesting is Google Earth wants us to believe that the landscape makes this curve as shown here. But the elevation cross section actually shows that the landscape of the United States from my dad's house to my house follows this path. And most of us, when we were in elementary school, learned that the Rocky Mountains, which is close to where my dad lives, is the continental divide that divides the rainfall from east to west. I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, I've been to the Milner Pass, which is about 2 miles above sea level. And there's a sign that says the Great Divide separates drainage to the Atlantic from the drainage to the Pacific. It traverses America from Alaska almost to Cape Horn. And so that would make sense if the landscape does follow this topographical cross-section. I wanted to see what would happen when you look at the elevation cross-section over a great body of water. So starting at the northernmost point, as far as I can get, of Lake Michigan, and then traveling south, you can see that red line here, that the body of Lake Michigan is 574 feet above sea level, and it's level. There's no change in elevation. There's no curve. This cross-section shows what an undisturbed body of water looks like, and that's level. We know that to be true. There's 3 properties of liquids. They have mass, they take up space, and they always take the shape of their container. And so Lake Michigan from north to south is 574 feet above sea level. So then just to do another check, I wanted to see what the elevation profile would look like for Hudson Bay in Canada. Relatively a large undisturbed body of water. And you'll see here from the westernmost side, it shows an elevation of -2 feet below sea level, and it's level for a distance of over 879 miles. So what does all that mean? What I believe it means is that water is flat, water seeks its own level, therefore the idea that we're spinning on a globe is absolutely impossible.